Hey, this is Nick from Income Digs. Welcome to this video tutorial. And today's video is pretty exciting. It's a little bit different, specifically because I'm joined by a guest. We are going to be introducing a really cool product called Stratafolio. And today I'm joined by one of the co-founders of Stratafolio, Jeri Frank, and she is going to be demonstrating the product for us. And let me tell you, we just got finished recording the session. It is super jam-packed with information. It's a really cool product that it supplements QuickBooks in ways that I haven't seen before. So for property managers, for owners of rental properties, commercial properties, land, anything like that, it's a really awesome piece of software. And we talk through all the awesome features. She demos it live for us, okay? So it's a little bit of a longer video, but I'm sure that you're going to find tremendous value in it. All right, so without further ado, please join me and Jeri from Stratafolio for a live demo of an amazing product.
Hi, Jeri. Welcome to the Income Digs YouTube channel.
Thank you. Good to be here, Nick. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to have you. My audience, as you know, is made up of real estate investors and property managers, and they, like me, we love the numbers, we love the analytics, and a lot of my audience uses QuickBooks. But as you and I have discussed, and I'm discussing with my audience, it falls short in some areas. But you have a really cool product that you've introduced me to, and I'm really excited that we can kind of get that out to my audience as well. Can you tell us a little bit about Stratafolio?
Yeah, I'm happy to. It is really great to be here and share this with your audience. So Stratafolio does connect directly to QuickBooks, both desktop and online, and we help owners, investors in basically 4 major areas. So we help with that global cash flow, we help with that global view of your debt, we help with lease management, and we help with investor management. And there's a lot packed in there, but overall, those are the areas that we focus on.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's a lot, and we're going to unpack a lot of that today, which is really exciting. But I mean, the one thing that is so clear is that QuickBooks it's obviously the industry leader when it comes to bookkeeping. But a couple things. One, it's not made specifically for real estate investors, and so we're consistently struggling to make it work for us. And two, it really is restricted just to that bookkeeping. And as we know, there's so many different aspects of our business, which it seems like your product is addressing, which is really, really exciting. So what I thought we'd do today is, you are the expert. This is your product. You're going to take us through some of the amazing features, and I'm going to just kind of be a student, but I'm going to help my audience kind of learn about this awesome new product that you have, and hopefully by the end of our session today, people will have a lot of great information about a really, really awesome product. All right.
Sounds great.
All right. So tell me, let's kick off. So what are we looking at right now? And tell me, when we log into Stratafolio, what are we looking at when it comes to data here?
Yeah, so this is the very first thing that you're going to look at when you log in. And we affectionately refer to this as our cash flow dashboard. And what we learned from talking to our customers is this is the thing that they really, really were trying to get at, to see from their global picture. That was the thing that drove our development to begin with. And it doesn't matter how many companies you have in your portfolio, we can connect to each and every one of those QuickBooks accounts and then aggregate all of that information into one single view.
Yeah. And you know what's super cool about this? I mean, the first thing that sticks out is like QuickBooks gives us those table reports, right? And they have all the information that we need for taxes, but I'm a visual guy. A lot of people are, and look how dynamic this is. And so that's what I love to see is what are our trends? How does this compare over time? And I'm also seeing just specific metrics that are specific to real estate that QuickBooks doesn't call out: debt service, cash flow, etc. So yeah, this is the kind of stuff that gets me excited too, this dashboard type look. So
right. Yeah, actually, one of the things on that point, so a lot of times your interest expense on profit and loss statements coming out of QuickBooks will show up over here in your expenses. Well, most people in real estate don't put it there. They put it below NOI. And so we do that as well.
Yep. Yeah, that's huge because when we're analyzing properties, this was super confusing to me when I started investing. Was you're analyzing a property, you have all those tools and stuff to analyze, and debt service is always separate from your P&L. But when you report for taxes, you're obviously including that interest expense. So like that disconnect, I couldn't get over it. And so you guys are doing exactly that. You can have it where you have it in QuickBooks, but you're reporting on it the way a real estate investor thinks in your platform.
Correct. Yeah, and one other thing that's really important to note here is we're actually showing things on a true cash basis.
Right.
And you do have the option of doing accrual or cash basis out of QuickBooks, but because of what we learned when talking to people, they wanted to know true cash flow. And so that's what we're showing here.
Yep. Super, super important. And so obviously we're connected to a QuickBooks account, and you said, multiple entities. So I guess like, how does that work from a property standpoint? So I guess we're probably looking at like a whole portfolio right now, right?
Correct.
So is it possible to kind of like filter it down to look at just certain properties?
Yeah, we sure can. So okay. Jane Doe here is the owner.
That's our investor, Jane.
Yeah,
she seems to be a pretty popular person in the online community. She does a lot. So.
She is, but she's doing very well with the rental income right now.
Okay.
Her cash flow is up 32% from year over year, so she's doing good.
Okay.
But yes, you can select just a particular entity. If you wanted to just see R&E real estate, then you just click on this particular.
That's cool. Yeah. So so those bars, the different shades of the bars are your different entities.
Correct.
And so you are hovering over to see the information. And if you want to have the whole graph depicted, you're just clicking it.
Yeah.
And it's drilling down. Mm-hmm. Super cool. Yeah. That is awesome. That's a really great interface. Love it.
Because we are connected to QuickBooks, and that is our source of record, whatever time period of information you have in QuickBooks, we're able to pull that in. So if you wanted to go back and look at a trend over, say, 5 years or so, it does it that way. If you have that much data, we can show it.
That's great. Yeah. And so the source of truth for all of this is QuickBooks, right? So you're just, you're setting up QuickBooks like you normally would, where you're allocating or you're indicating. I think we said in the past, you can use like either customer or class to indicate which property we're talking about. Is that right?
Yeah. Everyone sets up their QuickBooks a little differently.
Okay.
What we can pull in class, or if you have accounts, we can associate particular accounts with.
Right. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, because everybody does do it differently. And that's like probably one of the most popular questions I get is, should I use class? Should I use customer? Should I use accounts? And I talk about how I do it, but there's various scenarios where you might want to use something else. So it's good that you can accommodate each. But I think the important part is like the source of truth is QuickBooks, right? You're not adding information here. You're trusting QuickBooks, which is so good at that part, right? The bank feeds and all that stuff. It's good at that. And then what we're doing here is giving it just a whole nother level of reporting and analytical capability.
Right. We're replacing what ends up in many people's spreadsheets.
Yeah. And I laugh just because, I do have a video or two out there, which is like specifically called external reporting for QuickBooks data. And it's Excel sheets or Google Sheets. So you're right. And it is, and then, it's the whole process of copying and pasting data or setting up integrations. And that's the difficult part. And you've handled that, which is great.
Right. Yeah. So
cool.
So the information that you're seeing up here at the top for these metrics, that same information is below here on a detailed cash flow statement.
Yeah.
And if you look closely, you will see that these line items very closely mimic the Schedule E.
Yeah.
And if you change the time period up here, the information down here is also changing. So you can easily.
Oh, nice.
So just a click of a button and you can see everything you need to see.
That is great. Yeah. And I think that, that mapping to the Schedule E is crucial too. A lot of people just drive themselves nuts trying to map things over.
Right.
So that's great. And I mean, just the dynamic part of this whole thing. I could see taking that entire cash flow statement by property or however, and sharing that with our investors or our bookkeeper or something like that. Looks really easy.
Yeah, actually, so one of the things that we do, we encourage people to have as many users in the system as you need. So it can be everyone in your team could have access. You can give access to your external accountant or accountants, or if you want your lender to have access for a certain period of time, you could give them a reader access so that they could go in and look at something.
Cool. Yeah, that is huge because that's the idea. Is like we have all this information, and if you as a business owner are the only one seeing it, obviously we're going to want to share it with the other key stakeholders, which is important. Cool. All right. I love this dashboard. I really do. Anything else you want to cover on the dashboard piece? I don't know if you know where I'm going. I'm looking at debt service, and I have questions about loans in a second, but anything else you want to cover on the dashboard?
I think we got it. It's pretty straightforward.
So I do want to talk about loans because you have debt service here. Obviously, we're paying our loans, we're paying interest, we're paying principal. So how do you guys handle loans in your system? I see a really cool looking, almost like another dashboard for loans.
Yeah, and this is, all of the things that we have developed have come from feedback from our customers. And one of our customers had said, loan management is a real struggle for me, and it's sort of embarrassing that I have to call my lender to find out how many loans I actually have out with them. And that made us think that this was a really good solution to help everyone manage their debt. So what we know out of QuickBooks is that you're paying down your principal. And we know that as you're making those loan payments, a portion of that should be going to principal and a portion should be going to interest if it's being done correctly. And once that principal payment is made and the interest payment is made, we're pulling that most current information in so that we can see now what your current total debt is across your entire portfolio.
Yeah, that is huge because the only way to do this, if we're looking on QuickBooks, we have our assets at the one part of the balance sheet, and then we have our debt, but there's no way to look at, we have to do the math ourselves about equity, and we don't have the differentiation between properties. So that's kind of what you're doing here.
Right.
What about what happens if you have for example, you have maybe a portfolio, multiple properties, and you're getting a loan and all of those are kind of collateral on one. Is that anything that we could account for?
Yeah, actually, when you're setting up your loan, and we do have, I don't have any examples in here, but what we can do is if we go into a particular loan, you can actually identify multiple properties that you want to bring in so they can all be under a single loan, because that doesn't happen.
That is huge. And that's another workaround type thing where when I got my first loan like that, I didn't know how to do it in QuickBooks, but we could have one liability account in QuickBooks. In your system, we can differentiate the properties.
Right.
And then it'll and I think we can do the percentage too. So that's extremely helpful because as we pick up more properties, I think that's bound to happen, right? You have a property free and clear, and so you kind of tie it in to add collateral, add value to a different loan. That's really, really common.
Yeah, it really is. And what we know is that real estate, there are lots of different ways to do it, and we've tried to take in lots of different aspects of that so that we can program to that and allow all of the variation that needs to be out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what else is really, I think it's really important just to take a second. You mentioned it a couple of times, the feedback from your customers. So one thing that is frustrating, and everybody knows I'm a QuickBooks fan. I obviously use it and I teach it. They're a big company. Intuit is large, and they get a lot of feedback, and most of their feedback is not from real estate investors. So it's really hard for them to listen to us and to tweak their product specifically for this little niche. You are targeting real estate investors specifically, and which we didn't mention, by the way. You are an investor yourself, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
We own our own real estate.
Right. So I think like that is just so huge that this is so specific to this niche that we're in, and you're able to iterate and you're willing to iterate so quickly to add features for your users, which is huge. So
yeah. One of the things that we've done is that, we'll hear it from one person, and then we'll hear it again, and then we'll hear it again, and that starts to resonate with us, and then we realize this really needs to be on the development roadmap. And then we go and we get more feedback and get more thoughts and suggestions around how that should work. And it's amazing what you're able to come up with when you are talking to all of these people, and people are giving you their best suggestions about how it should work and how it will solve their problem.
Right. Yeah, that is huge. And it's the best source of features. We can always guess on, what our audience is going to want, what our customers are going to need, but they are the ones who are going to tell us. And it's so important that you're willing to listen to that.
Yeah.
Just quickly too, like there's just so many metrics that aren't existing in QuickBooks. So let's just take a second to look like the average interest rate graph that you have. There's no place in QuickBooks at all to enter interest rates for loans. Mm-hmm. I wish there was, because if there was, they would maybe be able to do an amortization schedule. But and then the debt coverage ratio. These are all really key metrics and key performance indicators that we all think about when we're analyzing property, but we have no way to track actuals.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's huge.
And the nice thing is this, lenders love this. And everything we have here is exportable. So you can choose what information you want to share. But if you wanted to say, like you wanted to take off, maybe you didn't want the lenders to show up, you just take it off of here, and then you can export this. You can move it around in a way that makes the most sense for you to share. But everything is accessible and exportable.
Yeah, and you have that table set up. Not that the table is better to view, like the dashboard's at the top, but if you need that like really specific data with all those columns, it's all there for you.
Right.
One more question on this. I see it in the left corner there, like the red, yellow, and green maturing loans.
Yes.
So I think I know what that is, but explain what we're doing with that.
Yeah, we've heard this time and time again that on Friday, someone learns that they have a loan that's going to be maturing in the next 2 weeks. They need some time to go out and shop that loan. Because most people do shop their loans. And so if you have a little bit of notice, like 6 months or a year, you might start looking or start a relationship with another lender or start talking with another lender about what should you do. And so what we do is we send, not only do you have this visual alert both here, and if you go to this table, this very, very long table, you will also see the alerts here as well. But in addition to that, we set up alerts so that they can be sent to you.
Oh, cool. Okay. So like an email notification.
Yeah.
Nice.
So down here at the bottom, you'll see here's these loans that are now past due, but they have matured, but you will get these on set time frames. They will be emailed out to you, and then you can just click on it and it'll take you directly to that loan. So you know, oh, this is the loan that's going to be maturing. That
is great. That's awesome. So, like when we get loans, sometimes we're like, okay, great. 10 years is so far away. Set it and forget it. If it's a 10-year maturity. And then it's like you said, you're 9 years and 11 months into it, and you have to act. So that's a really good proactive operational tactic. Cool.
And then on the individual loan level, all of this information was available on that detailed view at the bottom. But this is that same information. So you can see what your original loan amount was, what it will be when that loan matures, so you know exactly what, you don't have to go to your loan documents. We'll tell you how long your loan was amortized over, your current debt coverage ratio, current cap rate, current NOI, the information that you want when you're going to go talk to your lender about refinancing.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. So like, not only do I need to shop for a loan, but I have everything I need to shop for that loan, probably way better prepared than the average investor.
Yes. Actually, lenders have told us that if their customers are using Stratafolio, and they would gladly give them 0.25% off, because it means that they probably have a pretty good grasp on what's really happening with their portfolio.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They want proactive, data-driven investors, and they have to do less work and less digging on the underwriting side too. I could see this. Well, both the original, there were the comprehensive view, and then this is almost like I could see us on our monthly finance meeting, like having this on the big screen, myself and my partners. And if there's one maturing, or if there's a property that isn't performing too well, or maybe it's overperforming, maybe there's some equity that makes sense for us to look into pulling out, pop this up, like, what's this current loan? And then we have all the information available to us on a live meeting as well.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
super useful.
Well, I'm here. I'll show you this too. So most investors, their goal is, of course, always to increase their asset value. And QuickBooks does not really allow you to track the value of your property. And but yet, for a real estate investor, that's the whole game, right? Is to understand what your true portfolio value is. And so this is where we would put in our current date, the asset value that we're assigning to it, and then you have the option of self-assess based on your view of the market. It could be cap rate based, or if you had a recent appraisal done, you can click that as well. And then you can add notes on how you got to that.
Right.
Because you think you're going to remember, and then 3 months later, you've kind of forgotten exactly what you said, what you said.
Right.
And then again,
that's huge. And like you said, QuickBooks doesn't really do it. I get a question every time, like, okay, we purchased for this amount and then we refinanced it. And the question coming from my students is like, all right, now how do I update the fixed asset value in QuickBooks for the refinance? I got an appraisal. How do I update that amount? The answer is you don't do that. You don't do it on your balance sheet because, tax-wise, you're actually depreciating that. And so to your exact point, that exists nowhere in your books. Yet we all know that our properties are worth more than they're showing on our book value.
Yeah. I mean, there's two different books you want to keep, right? There is what you are doing for tax purposes, but then you really want to know, what is my total asset value and what kind of equity do I actually have?
Right. Yeah. It's super important. Cool. I love this. And this is just, we take one line plus the transaction, one line on the balance sheet, liability line on the balance sheet, plus the transactions that bring that down. That's what QuickBooks has. And then everything else that we're adding to it is all the super important stuff for making key decisions about your business. That's
exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
And this was set up so if you have multiple loans at a bank, you can select that bank, and exactly when you're ready to go talk to that bank, you can say, hey, here's all the loans. It just helps you understand what you're dealing with, what they're dealing with, and you're more prepared.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's clear that you were developing this with the dynamic functionality in mind, because you know that if a static report could be useful today, but what about tomorrow when I go to the other bank?
Right.
So I like how that is always in all the user interface screens that we've seen so far. You're always able to kind of dynamically adjust what we're looking at, which is key. I mean, that's super important.
Yeah. So here you can go down to the entity, to the asset level. If you want to make sure that you're pulling in assets that are completely paid off, obviously that's a big deal for your asset value and your total equities.
Right. Yeah.
You can pull that in as well. And I think that's everything. The other thing is everything is always searchable. So if you really just wanted to look at Chickadee Lane, you can pull up just that property. Actually, there's 2 lane properties. So
Yeah, okay.
everything we've set up is searchable, so you can isolate to certain things, sort things different ways. It's all intended to be ease of use for that end user.
That is great. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love it. I love the loans portal. It's super exciting. It's probably an essential part of, 99% of every real estate investor's operation is understanding debt and making decisions on that. And this makes it a whole lot easier. So that is great.
Yeah.
Cool. So so we've talked about, finances when it comes to net income, cash flow. We've talked about the equity and the debt side of things.
Mm-hmm.
What is really exciting about your product that I think we're going to get into next is not only are we talking about finances, we're also talking about operations. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. So what can we do in Stratafolio when it comes to operating our business?
Yeah. So you probably have, within most companies, they have multiple legal entities. So what we do is we set up a hierarchical structure. So for instance, Jane Doe, who owns Brookline Companies, is at the very top. And then underneath of that, she has 4 legal entities. And you can have as many as you want. And this is our entity view. So you can see for her what each entity current asset value is. And then if you dig deeper, you will see all of the assets that are associated with this property or with this entity. And here, then you can dig into the buildings that are in this property. So for this property, which is everything has hyperlinks, so you can just keep drilling down and go back through that. So at Cardinal Road, there are 2 multi-family buildings. And because we are in real estate, it seems like we're constantly out at the assessor site. So we just link to the assessor site. Whoops, I lost it. Where did I go? There we go. So we just link right to the assessor site. Then we also have information here about when did you purchase this property. I think I call this a multifamily, but it's actually an office building. It was purchased in 2014. We acquired it for $3.6 million. The current asset value is 3.7. If you want to look at the individual buildings, you can go look at those individual buildings. And then here are the 3 tenants that are across those buildings.
Got it. And so when we're talking about asset, building, unit, so an asset would be like a parcel, a lot. And then within that asset, you could have potentially 1 or 2 or 3 buildings.
Correct.
Right. And then each building has 1 or more units. And those units are the actual, that's what you're actually renting out to tenants.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, cool. Got it.
So that's the hierarchy structure. And you can also drill down on the left-hand column so you can see the entities underneath the properties. You can see the assets, the buildings, the units, the tenants, the lease, and the work orders. We'll just go into the units and take a look here. And
by the way, I'm sure everybody watching knows this, but all we can do in QuickBooks right now is tag, the property, right? So we can make that connection here in Stratafolio and then add so much more to it, meaning multiple units, and we're getting into, I think, tenants and all that as well. So this is all bonus stuff that, you have no chance at tracking in QuickBooks.
Right. That's exactly right. And we bring in 12 different asset classes from single family home all the way up to land and specialty for something that doesn't seem to fit anywhere else. Okay. And we separate both on, we look at the unit status, but we also look at the lease status, because sometimes there is a difference in how that unit's being treated and how the lease is being treated. So for instance, in this one, this is a future lease. So in this building, Lewis Shaw here, he has rented it, but it's a future lease. And so you don't really want to look at it like it's available, but it's not quite yet there that tenant is in. We also differentiate if it's month to month, because when you're talking to your lender, the lenders look at things differently on a month to month lease versus a signed occupancy for the next year.
So, absolutely. Yep. You can say, hey, yeah, everything's rented. There's people in all of my units, but if one or two of those or however many are month to month, that's not as exciting for the lender, and they might want you to get those on full-term leases.
Yeah. Yeah, it's riskier to them because you can't necessarily guarantee, not that you can ever fully guarantee, but there is less guarantee that you're going to be receiving that rent, even if they are super solid tenants.
Yeah.
So let me pull up for any of your customers that have retail. I'll just pull up a view of the lease. So this is what you would see around leases. You will have the lease abstract, and this will show who the tenant is, what units are associated with that tenant, because sometimes you have multiple units associated with a tenant, the rentable square feet, what the status of the lease is, the lease type, whether it's triple net, gross modified, whatever you want to call it, the term of the lease, how many days you want to get alerted before it renews or expires, how much grace period you have for that tenant making their payment, and then security deposits.
Nice. Yep, that's huge. And that lease, what I really love here, is the days for renewal alert. That's a big one for me, because it's like the loans that we talked about before is, okay, I'm rented now. You can't just sit back, relax, and say you're done, because the next thing that happens is, we have 2 weeks until our property's vacant. We haven't touched base with the tenant to see if they want to renew.
Yeah.
I really think that's important, that renewal alert right there.
Yeah. And that's why you get this email that
Right.
you about your expiring leases.
Yeah.
This then just shows what units are associated with the lease. If you have contacts associated with a particular building, a lot of our customers will have only certain people that will touch HVAC or roof for a particular building. So you can put those contacts there. Here's the tenant information. And then if you have a triple net lease, like a commercial lease where you have annual escalations, we can track what that base amount is and then what those annual increases are, and if they are a confirmed lease amount. And for those people who have commercial leases, often they will associate what that increase is with the consumer price index. And we'll know next year on April 15th that there is an increase to family dentist here, but you don't know what it is until that time. So we help you identify, hey, it's time to start that research on what that new rate increase should be.
Yep. Okay. Got it.
And then if you have operational expenditures or CAM with your triple net leases, the nice thing that we're able to do is, because we are connecting directly to QuickBooks, we can pull in all of those transactions. So we could pull in all of the actuals, and we could break out all of the CAM expenses, common area maintenance charges that are common, snow removal, lawn care and landscaping, property management, lighting, janitorial, insurance, taxes. And then we can look at 2019 and we can hit reconcile. And we will get something like this. So
cool. Okay. I see what's going on. That's cool. Okay. So column B has the actuals.
That was yeah. So for family dentists, they're 54.17% of that space. And when you have a commercial lease, you charge both for the base rent and for common area maintenance charges or operational expenditures. And We actually did a poor job on mock data with this because this tenant would be really unhappy with it because they are going to have to come up with $139,000.
There's just a lot of common area expenses. That's fine. But I get what so you give them the budget, and then your system is automatically doing the end of year reconciliation. Correct. To show how close to that budget we came, and then to prepare then that bill or that credit for the tenant, right?
Yeah. And then we break this out. So this is up to you as the owner, what you want to share with your tenant. But if you want to see how we got to those numbers, here is how it's broken out by month, by expense. Most people delete this information or don't share this information with their tenant unless they're asked. But we can set this up however you as the owner like to share information.
Right. Yeah. And that second tab, I mean, it's always great to have it. And in case you're getting challenged on it, you have it available to you. And I bet you, like a tenant might say, I'm going to ask them for it, I bet they don't even have the breakdown. and you could say, we've got it. Yeah. So,
you can email this and we encourage people to take a look at this. We think we get pretty close, but we're not there with that day-to-day operations with your tenant. So if there was something that you agreed to that was outside of we wouldn't necessarily know that. So you can go in and change this and reflect it however you want and add notes, but the calculations are pulling in the actuals, and it's up to you if you want to adjust.
Got it. Right. Yeah. Super cool. That's great.
And then we can track payments and leases. So if you want to have, maybe you have a check-in for your property, you wanted to record something, take pictures when they moved in, a floor plan, you can include that information. You can include the lease.
Yeah, so the actual lease we sign, maybe like the tenant move-in packet is one thing we do. Or like an inspection form, even like here's the inspection when you move in, here's the inspection when you move out.
Right.
You can keep all those files there. That's essential, right? To have them all in one place.
Yeah. Take some pictures, put them up there. And then all of your information is in one spot.
Cool. Yeah, that is awesome. Great. And then below leases, I see a work orders as well. I think this is relatively new, right?
This is relatively.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, this just rolled out in the last month.
Okay, cool. So so literally iterating on a monthly, if not a bi-weekly basis, which is amazing. That's great. So how does work orders work?
Yeah. So like before, when we talked through that we had all of the assets, we have tenant information. So now when you get a tenant calls in and says, hey, I need a toilet repaired on a particular property. Well, you add a work order and you give a brief description of what that is, title it, who it was requested by. So you can add in your tenant that requested it. You can decide what the priority level is, the type of job. So we started characterizing about 15 different things that you might want to categorize. And this becomes important later when you're starting to make some going back and looking at your data over the last years to see, one, maybe you're having a lot of HVAC repairs and you realize that the air conditioning system that you've installed in all of your rentals is maybe a problem. But now you finally have that data in one spot and you can start tracking and start making decisions based on real data.
Right. And that leads to like the transition from being reactive on repairs and doing the repairs and then it blows up in your face, or handling the small repairs and using that data to make proactive and even sometimes preventative decisions about the expensive assets in your property.
Yeah.
That's a big one. That's a big one for us. Like, man, how many times do we have to fix that furnace before, it's going to completely shut down in the middle of winter? That would be a really bad thing for our tenant and for us. Let's look at the information like you suggested.
Yeah. Yeah. So because we're capturing the information already in the system, we know what the location is, we know what the tenant is, so we can just select that information, pick the tenant, assign it to whoever you're going to assign it to, and then you can decide who you're going to bill this to. Because maybe you're not going to bill, it's owner responsibility, so no worries. But you can track what those hours are to get that work done. You can track the mileage, any costs associated with that. So it's data that you have to make real decisions about the future.
That's huge. Yeah, that is great. And again, obviously, with pretty much all we're talking about in the operations section here, obviously this is all information stored on your system. It's not touching QuickBooks, but I think what's so neat is like you have an operations system that we're talking about, and it's completely automatically tied with the financial part. So you still only really need to come to one place, assuming the transactions are recorded properly in QuickBooks.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And then if you ever want to look back over the history of a ticket, occasionally you'll have an issue that goes on and on and on, and you want to look back and see what actually happened. We have that audit trail. So see when it started, who started it, what happened during that. So, we encourage your staff to put in notes around what happened. And then you have an audit trail should you ever need to prove something.
Yeah. Yep. Super important, especially, the more units we have, the more we're delegating stuff out. It's easy to lose track of that without that kind of trail. So.
Right. And because we are tracking all of this information here, you're able to start making decisions also about, okay, we have hired this outside firm to handle these kinds of activities. Let's go back and look at their performance.
Yeah. Interesting. Right. Yeah. Like how quickly are they closing tickets? How quickly are they reacting to tickets? Right.
Right. How many times they've closed tickets fast, but then they had to go back out because there was another. So all of this really just gets you to that data that you can then make an informed decision about your path forward. So if you wanted to see what's out there waiting on parts, sorry, there's not a lot of data there. But if you wanted to see what completed, you can pull a report and see everything that completed. Apparently, we didn't complete anything yet. You can look at all of your anything that and you can do multiple filters. And there's not a lot of data out here, but you can do multiple filters at the same time so that you could really drill into a particular issue or a particular location.
Right. Yeah. And you said that, making decisions, and my audience has heard me say this so many times, is like, we are all, as business owners, we are proactive and we are ready to, whether it's take risk or take initiative, but we need information. And that's what's so cool about all of the stuff we're talking about here is it's giving you that information right at your fingertips so that you are empowered to make those decisions with confidence. And whether it's from the operations standpoint, the financial standpoint, business as a whole, that's what you're accomplishing with the product.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Cool. Awesome. I love that part. The operations is always a big hole. People that, watch my stuff, they know that, we've used Podio and we've used different products. We've never been able to successfully link an operations system to an accounting system as robust as QuickBooks. And so that's what, that's been the missing link forever. It's been like, oh, I use this for operations. I use this for bookkeeping, not really financial analysis. We're bringing it all together here. So that's really why I'm so excited about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Cool. So great. We've tackled the operations. I think we're going to talk a little bit about investors as well. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Cool.
A lot of real estate owners start out, maybe they purchase things on their own, but soon they start to grow and they want to be able to bring on more people or more organizations into their portfolio to help them grow. So we're going to look here at Jane Doe. And Jane Doe herself, who's doing very well, She has 13 investments across this portfolio.
Okay.
And I know that first because it says 13. If you want to look, here are her individual investments. But if you want to just go into any one of these, you can see not only her investment, but you can see all of the investors that are involved in this.
And so when we say her investment, we're talking about the entity is what she invested in.
Correct.
Got it. And the entity owns assets, and that's how you determine. It's all like a bottom up, assets are worth something, and that gives us the entity's value, and then her percentage gives her equity in that.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Cool. Got it. And so what's the difference between, if we look at investors here, the handshake versus the scale? So like Bud Fox versus Jones, how are those different?
Yeah, good question. The Bud Fox here, the hands, that is an individual investor. That's an individual person. Jones here is an entity investor. So it could be another company investing in another company, which is very common in real estate. And we want you to have a quick view of who are the individual investors versus who are those entity investors.
Got it. I would have to imagine, I think we probably talked about this before, I would have to imagine that exact scenario and differentiating the two was a specific client request, customer request.
It was.
That is really, it's such an important differentiation and distinction. And for you to include an ability to deal with that is, I think, really huge, because it is really specific. So if you guys are, following along on this, what we're talking about is I'm a person investing in an entity, or I have a business that's going to invest in an entity. We can differentiate that within this portal here to see the difference. That is huge. So, and really specific to how real estate investors work.
Yeah, it's so common. So I'll just take you through how this works. So Lionfish, as an entity investor, invested in Jones, and Jones invested in Fletcher. So that means that Jane Doe owns 0.08% of Fletcher through all of these indirect investments. And it gets—
That is awesome. I get it. Wow. Okay. I get exactly what you're talking about, the path of ownership. So her as a single person owns that 0.08% via all this other stuff that happened to get her there.
Yep. And we can go down, honestly, you can go down as many layers as you want. We have it so it will calculate automatically.
So we talk about, what's cool about this too is at a portfolio level, we talk about the metrics, providing them to banks. I could see this from Jane Doe's perspective, from a personal financial statement scenario. Not only here's all the real estate I'm involved with, but here's specifically how much I own of each. That's a really hard calculation that people probably typically are guessing at, and whoever we're providing that personal financial statement to might trust it not at all. That's a really important calculation that we're doing here.
Yes. And so often the problem that we hear from people when we're talking is they'll tell us, I see money coming in, I see money going out. I have no idea how much I'm actually making.
Right.
And it's a common problem, and it's an embarrassing problem for these people as well, because they can't answer this question that they want to be desperately to be able to answer.
Yeah. And we know it's not the tax return, right? That's a completely different thing. We are lucky in real estate to get some really great deductions that are, those are paper deductions. And we already talked about book values and everything. So your tax return is something, sure, but it's not reality when it comes to how much you're actually making as an investor and as a business. And that's what we're answering here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah, I guess we could just to quickly go through this a little bit more. So what you see then is Bud Fox here. He is 10% owner of Fletcher, and his initial contribution was a little over $1 million. He is a guarantor on this loan, so he is responsible for some portion of this loan. He has a responsibility of $514,000 specifically. His equity value in this asset is $656,000. The asset value, his portion of the asset value is 1.17. The date of investment, and so all of that is available. And very shortly here, Bud Fox will be able to log in and see his portion only of everything in this portfolio.
Got you. Okay, so the investors can log in and only see what they're tied to from a portfolio standpoint.
That is the next thing on our development path. So everything that you would not want them to see would have a lock on it, but they would only be able to see their portion of the whole.
That is huge. Yeah. And again, I mean, those of you, Podio, and like, we can't do that. You are granting access to an entire workspace. First of all, we don't have this kind of information. So like, it's not like we could even do this kind of thing. But the ability to limit access is something that Jeri said they're working on. It's going to be really huge to allow investors to log in and see that information. And I would imagine a great selling point. Here's why you want to invest with me. Look at this cool portal that I'm giving you access to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great. Cool. It's really well done. And I mean, just the idea too, I'll just bring up one line, like it's currently in development. It's like, Jeri will probably text me or email me in a day or two and say it's done, right? Like that's how quick they're working and improving the system, which is just really exciting. I love to see that. It's not that there's, like, the system's great, but there's different use cases and different, customer requests that they are dealing with to consistently make it better.
That's exactly it.
That is great. I mean, the demo was amazing. Is there anything else that you'd like to show that we haven't gone over quite yet? Or do you think we've kind of rounded it out nicely?
I think we've hit pretty much everything there is.
And who would you say, I mean, we've gone over, as we've been talking, we've gone over it. When you've created this and as you've continued to develop it, you've gotten customers, who is this built for? When you are doing the development, obviously you have specific customers asking for things, but who is in your mind for this product is perfect for fill in the blank?
Yeah. So obviously we can take in 12 different asset classes. And actually I should bring that up so you could see that. But if you wanted to, let's see, we're going to add an asset here and then you can see exactly what it would look like. So these are the 12 different asset classes that you can bring in. What we have noticed and what we have seen based on our conversations with customers is that people who are struggling the most are on the commercial real estate side. So people who have that mixed use, retail, industrial, shopping center, healthcare, the reason they're struggling is not only do they have to go through a time-intensive activity with annual CAM reconciliation, but every year there is an annual increase on rent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Technically, your lease says that rent increase happens on X date, and that tenant should know, and they should just pay you. Unfortunately, what happens is that tenant doesn't change their payment, and they don't acknowledge that they've seen it, and months and sometimes a long time can go on, and people will have not told their tenant, and it's really difficult to go back and collect what is really rightfully their rent to collect.
Absolutely. And that happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And in fact, sometimes when we go back, we realize it. Some clients of mine have said that they're embarrassed to go back to the tenant because they don't want to seem incompetent. Even if the tenant maybe would pay, maybe they would, but of course it's difficult to get. They won't go back because they're embarrassed that they have holes in their process that they didn't get that increase.
Exactly.
So it's covering those holes and those pitfalls so that we can be proactive about all this stuff. It's easy to write it in the lease and set it and forget it, and then what happens in the next year or the third year when things have to go up.
Right. And the other thing around the people who have commercial leases is that CAM reconciliation is a very time-consuming activity that happens at a time when you're also trying to get ready for taxes and close out all kinds of things. And if it's not done and your lease has caps in it, or it has and you're building from one year to the next and you haven't really closed out that process, it's not only a problem for the previous year, but potentially then for future years.
Right. Yeah, it compounds, right.
Yeah. And we've seen people who have not done CAM well for many, many years, and that's just lost opportunity. And if their lenders knew, I'm sure their lenders would not be very happy either, because it's lost revenue.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that is huge. So that helps to, that makes sense that those are the folks that would benefit the most from this. But obviously we kind of cover it all here, which is great as far as the target. Pretty much if you're investing in property, if you're an owner, an investor, then this product's going to really, really help.
Right.
Great. Well, one thing I do want to mention to everybody is that I wouldn't have had Jeri come demo this if I wasn't really excited about it. Hopefully you've noticed that I am. And I am becoming a customer. So we have my login is set up. I have to go in there and we're going to work on the configuration. And what's great about that is I'm going to be a user, and I hope Jeri's ready for it. I'm into software, and so she's probably going to get some of those customer requests from me. But what's cool about that is as I begin to use it more, I can do some more demos where I'm showing you the cool new thing that I found out, or like, look how this connection to QuickBooks works. So I am going to be a user, and you're going to see more demos from me, as a customer using it. So I definitely encourage all of you to go check it out. And if you have questions on this, Jeri's going to be available for that, but you can leave them in the comments of the video as well, and we'll certainly be able to point you in the right direction for that. Before we kind of sign off, Jeri, is there any other comments for the audience, or any special ask for them?
Just come check us out. Subscribe to our newsletter so you can get the information that we share on a nearly weekly basis about news or stories or things to help you be more efficient and more profitable. Because in the end, we're always just about helping you be more profitable. And you do that by putting automation in your life so that you don't make simple errors, and you can refocus on buying that next profitable property for your portfolio. So sign up for us on our website, stratafolio.com. Come check us out, schedule a demo. We'd be happy to walk through your specific situation and find out if we can help you.
That's awesome. Yep, I echo that. I encourage you to do the same. This is really, as I kind of mentioned at the front end, it's not just about bookkeeping. That is something that QuickBooks can do. We're adding analytics, we're adding operations, and we're providing the real-time data that you need as a business owner and as an investor to make those crucial business decisions. So I'm really excited about it. And just going through this demo, I'm like, okay, let's get my information up and running so that I can take advantage of all this stuff, because Jeri knows I've been dragging my feet a little bit on it, but it's happening because I'm excited about the whole thing. Yeah. So thanks so much, Jeri, for joining and coming on and demoing this amazing product. Again, if you have questions about it, leave them in the comments here. You can always email me directly, nick@incomedigs.com. I'll make sure we get the answer for you. All right. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you on the next video.
Thank you.